Hello everyone, welcome to IT-Conductor. Today we have the webinar on SAP Transport Automation. I am your presenter and I will be doing some PowerPoints, hopefully not too many, just to give you overview, and then we'll hop into some demo of the product and hope to show you some automation that help you get started with the transport or change management in SAP. So let's give you an overview. First of all, I would like to provide you an overview what IT-Conductor platform is, and that's only a few minutes video just to give you an idea. We are an enterprise solution that is created to automate, monitor, manage, and orchestrate the IT processes through intelligent cloud automation. So let me play a quick video, so bear with me, and I will show you what our platform is about, so then we can get an idea of our capabilities. Okay.
IT-Conductor is a cloud-based application performance management and automation solution. Designed and developed to support the demands of digital transformation, IT-Conductor extends beyond a platform, offering solutions to monitor, manage, and orchestrate enterprise IT through intelligent automation. Managing applications involve monitoring the availability and performance of a wide variety of application domains, including its underlying infrastructure, from databases, servers, network, and storage resources. It is often costly and time-consuming, not to mention the effort and resources required to set up silos of tools that create disparate systems and a lack of cohesion among functional areas of the business. This is exactly why we developed a massively parallel processing engine to manage distributed systems more efficiently and make it simpler for IT teams to perform their tasks. A simple, yet powerful platform that lets you manage systems almost instantly through a secure gateway connection. Get a better understanding of your entire system landscape from a single pane of glass. Increase visibility into system performance with advanced observability features. Perform root cause analysis using time-synchronized troubleshooting. Manage alerts using policy-based exceptions. Leverage the integrated and highly configurable dashboards to show only what is meaningful to you, effectively minimizing noise and maximizing the performance of your systems. Utilize the capability of the platform to automatically run reports on schedule. Manage batch jobs and monitor execution logs. Automate processes using the platform's built-in process composer and leverage existing automation templates. Design, build, and deploy solutions at cloud speed. At IT-Conductor, we are always looking to the future and helping you accelerate your journey towards cloud transformation. We help organizations move to the cloud simpler and faster by providing the orchestration design and deploy engine to enable end-to-end cloud migrations. Stop guessing and start managing. With our remote and agentless management platform delivered as a service, you get exactly what you pay for. As a company, we value your trust. And for that, we commit ourselves to continuously innovate and strive to make our platform more accessible, improving overall user experience. Do you want to learn more? Feel free to reach out to us.
All right, so that's the intro video about IT-Conductor. And so today we're going to talk about transport automation, and I want to make sure we visit the overall agenda first. Since it's the new year, Happy New Year, and in the new year, normally people make some New Year resolution, and resolution is about change. So it's appropriate we talk about change and how we manage change as part of the automation process for transport in SAP as part of the core change management system. So I will provide an outline of what the solution is about, what is the common problems that customers encounter typically managing SAP changes, and of course, folks who are responsible for day-to-day operations in moving transports from one system to another and landscape. And then we will go through what we did to simplify that process and automating that, and how it fits into the overall application management that we provide. So let's go through what the common problems in traditional transport As most people who have worked with SAP knows that transport requests are a natural process promoting transport from one system to another. And so normally we are dealing with manual transport. Typically, basis team or transport team gets requests. They then move transport to various systems, assuming they've been approved, and then they get tested. Then they get moved to other systems, and then so on and so forth. So basis team is part of the, I guess, original team that support this. And there may be, depending on organization, change management team that now does transport. But when it fails or there's issues to troubleshoot, there's always come back to basis team, or there's somebody in the team that is managing that transport movement. And then we also not only dealing with the transport process, but you have to make sure that people are notified when transports have gone in so they can resume testing. Or if you are the developer and you're waiting for your transport, you want to know whether it's successfully gone to another system to continue testing, or if it failed, you want to know that as well. So getting early notification helps you deal with that whole process. And the whole process itself, depending on how many transports you're moving, obviously can be quite mundane and tedious tasks in terms of time consuming, as well as could be error prone as well. So if you're moving transport in the wrong sequence or dependency, etc., that might cause other problems as well. So we'll use this opportunity to do a couple of polls to get an idea of the kind of audience we are working with. So that will help us. So at this stage, if we can start this poll, please. So we have how many transport is your basis team. So feel free to click through and then I'll show the result. And I understand some of you are customers, some of you are also managed service providers. So just take a stab at the answer that best represent your scenario. Okay, so look like we have 8 responses. So few, 1 to 3. There are some that are 10 or more. Okay, so it's a daily occurrence, obviously, right? So always there's some changes, fixes, or development or project work. So uh, thank you for that. And let's proceed on with the presentation. So what are the benefits of an automated transport request management system? Obviously, you know that the more number in terms of volume, the more tedious or more error prone the manual process is. So in reducing the manual processing and as well as the time to process those transports. So assuming you have, let's say, 10 transports or 5 transports, the time to process each one of those and then monitor the result of those transports and notifying the appropriate people that it's been done, etc., can provide some solution for automating that helps to reduce the overall wait time as well as the processing time. Okay. And then also reducing the risk, as I mentioned, transport is just not that simple when you're combining multiple transports that maybe have dependencies between Workbench and customizing changes. And that can cause problems when you transport it into the system and you find out that something is broke. So making sure that the group of transports that go in the proper order and dependency also helps. And then in the end, typically most customer systems today have compliance requirement. They need to report on what went into what system, who requested what, and what was the result of those transports, and the exact time they went into the system. So providing an overall environment capability in the compliance perspective to make sure that we have records of all these systems and who requests and what transport went where, that also help with the compliance. Okay. So here's another poll we have, just quickly understanding the transport request. Typically, most customers either do it on demand or on some schedule based on an approval process or a change approval board. So just a quick poll here, please. And I guess there is an answer that maybe it's both, but let's just keep that simple for now. Okay, so I guess most of you are doing it on demand. So I suppose depending on your request process, it may be as simple as somebody sending an email saying, can you move this transport to XYZ? Or submitting a form or some kind of ITSM, the service desk process to submit a request and all that. So a few are doing on schedule. Okay, so I guess that's good indication of today mostly on demand. We support both scenarios, so that that's a area that we can cover based on your individual need. All right, so let's continue on. So what is automated process automation? So we reduce the processing time, right? Automating that as part of the end-to-end. If you're moving transport manually, either you are manually logging into SAP GUI and going into the import queue and doing the import or doing all that checking. Let's say you have a list of 10 transport that can take a while to process those even before they get executed through the SAP Change Management, right? The manual processing time and the dependency. So if you're out to lunch and somebody needs a transport to be moved and you are maybe the on-call person doing transport, the other requester might have to wait, right? So that's also a time waster. If you have a team of people waiting to test, all those times add up to waste of resources and delay. And then so we also covered before about providing logs and reports in order to make sure that end-to-end process executed correctly, went into the right system and provides a sufficient audit trail for your compliance requirement. Okay, so some of those benefits are there. So we have a quick poll just to see if anybody's using anything besides just manual transport. So we can get an idea for that, please, for the poll. So this includes if you are using SAP CHAM as well, if you have that. Or if you wrote some script, some basis team also write scripts to do transports, maybe mass transports or something like that. So I think most of the answer is custom or no. So yes, there's not a lot of solution out there. There are a few, including SAP CHAM as well. So I guess we can assume that that's the reason you are here today, taking interest in our topic of automating transports. Again, so I will resume the presentation. So let me explain on the environment that typically most customers have and how we represent them in IT-Conductor and how we automate and manage those transport process. So obviously in a typical SAP environment, you have a landscape. So let's say you have finance systems, warehouse or CRM, typically involve, let's say, a simple SAP 3-system landscape, a development, a QA, and a production system. So development are done in dev or maybe in sandbox and move to dev, etc. And then from there, typically you have developers who do the unit testing and then require that to be moved to an integration system called consolidation for QA in order for them to have the QA team test. Our functional folks do the testing, etc. there. Once it's basically tested and passed or rejected, they go back and then repeat that until the point in time where they may bundle several transport because one may be unit test, but integrated into a bundle to test a particular functionality. Then they get transported into production, right? So that's a typical landscape that we deal with in transport management. They are assumed to be one transport domain. And I show you in our lab demo that we use today, something set up similarly, right? So we have a SAP transport route. You can see we have 3 systems. We have a development system, we have a QA, and we have a delivery production system, all set up to do one transport layer. So this is the environment that we'll use for demo today. Okay, and how do we represent that in the IT-Conductor? We'll talk about that in the representation as soon as we go through the next poll here. So let me put up this one. And so we talked about whether to use third parties. Third party means you bought a product off the shelf or some commercial product. But if you have already a scripts or something you do internally, that's also an automation approach. So let's take this poll right now, please. There's no wrong or right answer, obviously, depending on your journey, where you are today, and maturity. We obviously can cater for your particular need with the solution. So right now, let's take a look at the poll. All right, so let's say half and half. Some yes, some no. And again, with the number of SAP customers and systems out there to manage, this is quite an area for us to automate, because the fact is it is repetitive, it's mundane. Nobody likes to do transport manually, right? Well, at least I don't know anybody who likes to do that manually. Okay, so one last poll here before I go into a little bit more in-depth demo. So do you have a person that does transport manually or automated? Is there a key contact, a dedicated person, or one person out of your team, maybe the junior basis person? So I would call that 2/3 have somebody dedicated to do transports. And somebody, okay, so that's good to know. I think most teams do have somebody who's working as part of the change management team or part of basis who handles all the troubleshooting or request process to move transports. Okay, so at this time, I will explain how the process works. So I would do the three, well, the acronym I like to use is called READ, R-E-A-D. So first, in the transport automation, we have a request, right? It starts with a request. Now, assuming the request is already kind of gone through some of your whatever change management CAP approval process, the request is for the transport to be moved from one source to one or more targets. So the request, we simplify that with a simple form. This can be hosted on your intranet site internally, and the developers or whoever is the people allowed to request, they must have user IDs existing on the source system. So if they are a developer, obviously they have a user ID with, say, an email associated with that SAP user ID. Put in the simple comments, and then the source system put in the request. We doesn't matter if it's Workbench or where it's customizing, and the order will be figured out by the solution. So SAP, we will bundle those transports, and dependencies will be worked out during the import process. Okay, so that's how the request starts. Okay, so as I said, it's read. R is for the request, and then go through the execution. And I will show live version of this, but the execution itself will be essentially taking requests from the source and moving them to one or more targets. So if you're moving to QA and then later on moving the transport to production, you can have multiple target sits there, or you can do it in one. So let's say, for instance, you may have tested something in Sandbox, and maybe you want to move from Sandbox to Dev and then to QA, for instance. That might also be a valid scenario as well. And then we track transport by user IDs. So this execution phase involves process design, right? So we have a automation process that takes the transports. We will break the transport requests down. So the form that submits it, one or more requests, will workflow that will analyze those requests, and then making sure that the requester is a valid user and has an email. Then we say, okay, you've requested this transport to be moved. And then those requests itself may have multiple targets, one or more system. And then depending on what transport it is, we will handle those as part of the automation process. So I will get into more of this. So this is the execution phase. And then after that, we actually notify, right? So once we notify the user that transport started and then maybe transport finished and what was the result of those transports. And then once you have that, you basically complete the process, and this process automation ends. So this is a workflow orchestration. So that's how that works. And then after that, you have the dashboard. And so we can actually see what that looks like on the dashboard. Okay, so just before I go into the live presentation, let's have a quick poll again on how many people today are notified transport completed successfully or without errors. Okay. So as you know, if you're in today, SDMS in a transport import queue, when it finishes, how do people know it's done, right? I think most people today I'm aware of use email or some sort of notification, either manual or comes out of some, if you have a third-party automation system or file. Okay, custom tool. Maybe it's a ticket, maybe it's ServiceNow or some kind of ITSM. I don't know if they get done like that. as well. So, all right, so we have emails, custom tool, etc. Okay, let me just quickly show you how that when we do the transport today, as I said, we do the request, the execution, and then the alerting or notification. So in IT-Conductor, we can notify the requester as well as notifying the, say, change management or basis team, for instance, of the actual request and their return code, etc. Right, so that gives you the immediate notification of those, right? And then from there on, we can then look at the report if needed on the dashboard. So at this point, I'm going to go into the live environment and explain what we are seeing. So what we have is the transport system. And as I explained to you before, let me just, so there's three systems that represent the landscape, right? Before I showed the landscape. So in the landscape, we have the dev, QA, prod, all right? And so in IT Conductor, the first part is that we connect these systems, and these are agentless, so we don't install anything on these systems except making sure they have the right user authorization for monitoring management. And we do have a transport automation role that we can import to make sure the user has that, as well as a transport that allows us to control the STMS interface. So that's simple to get up and running. We have dev, QA, prod, and each of these systems, essentially, we will manage and control. And the source and the target itself, as long as they're connected in the transport management in terms of shared file system, those transports itself will be moved accordingly into the right buffer, queue, and import. Right? So here's the dashboards that is for this particular demo. For instance, today, this morning, I'm pretending I'm the developer. I started requesting some transports to be moved, right? So you have various different transports. So from the source system standpoint, you see here all the different transports that were moved this morning. And then you can see what target system they went to. So 2 will move to development, 1 will move to production. And you can see the status there, right? So from this point of view, you have um, a clear idea of what is transpiring in your environment from a transport automation standpoint. Let's say if you want to go into particular request, you clicked on the request, you get the actual workflow of the request. And let me just expand this. So when we submit a transport, and in fact, I would do one just to demonstrate because we did have some test data to use. So let's say, for instance, I want to submit a transport. Okay, so here I am on the form, and I have a set of test transports to do. So let me just do, I have a group. I can do one by one, I can do groups, etc. So this morning, I already moved one group to development. Let's assume that's been done, and I'm going to move to prod. So I'm just going to do this, let it submit, run it in the background. And so you select the target system, and I'm the requester. So I'm just going to enter in my ID, right? And there are 3 transports. So I can put them in any order, doesn't matter. So for instance, you don't need to go and worry about which one should go in first or what should go into. Typically, when you specify a group, maybe as part of some feature functionality, you can just put them into the list. We can support a bundle of customizing and workbench, and you put them in here. And let's put all 3 in here. If you need more, you can add more requests, so you can add request here. So this is a list of transports, and before I submit here, I want to just take a look at, this is the one that was processed this morning when I started my day. I went in here and said, let's do a bundle just to test. So this bundle here is that group one, and the group one itself was processed successfully. Just to give you an idea how I got the notification on that, the transport went in, I got notification email. This is the group one, went to ZO2, here's the transport, etc., return code. When you go into here, I will explain what all the processes are after I submit the transport. So let's now, assuming it went to QA, I'm going to now approved. It's already been approved to go production testing, so that you're going to hit submit that. Okay, so we're just going to let it run. It will kick off the automation process behind the scene. So for now, we're going to take a look and explain to you what happens. So in this case, I'm the requester. If I have an email in my user master record in SAP, if I don't, then it will fail and notify the basis that transport failed because the user doesn't have valid email. It won't continue. But assuming this case, we went and continue, we look at all the requests, if the requests were released or not, right? If it's not released, obviously it will fail as well and stop. So this is a graphical composer. We use our web-based designer to drag, drop, and then essentially we can clone this process for customers and customize it as needed. So once we go into, so you may go to one or more systems. That's what the target enumerator is. And then one or more transports, right? So each transport, assuming a transport list went in, right? So we take those transports that were provided from the form. We can actually modify options as part of customizing the workflow for you, how you want to do transports. Different customers want, different flags that are supported by SAP transport system. That can be customized as well. So once the transport gets enumerated, it gets moved into the system, and then you get the import log. So this, as you can see, multiple transport went in, what are all the logs, return code, etc., as part of that group. Right? So upon successful failure, that will then notify your email accordingly based on the submitter and also the basis team that is set up in the transport management system that we customize. Right? So that's the overall process flow. So if I go back now to my dashboard, we should see the new transport request come in. So now that was 4 before, now I got 5. So this is in process. So it takes a few minutes to look at the request and then start automating and looking at different parts like what target system and what transports it needs to move and start doing that work. And so you can see, again, back in SAP, if I'm going to my QA system, the group went in before. You can see here, 1, 2, 3, I think those transports. So this group 1 transport, and then group 1 transport. So in this particular case, it already went in. You can see from the transport logs. So that's what we provide, the transport request. Now, when you go into my production system, so if you weren't doing a automation tool like IT-Conductor, you would have to hop onto various systems and check the transport logs manually, right? So here we go. We have 3 that were part of the request. They start showing up now, right? So then you can see whether they've been processed or not, and then import steps, right? They're still being processed. As we look at the workflow, let's take a look at the workflow now. In progress. Yellow means they are in progress. And then you can see this is a definition that we instantiate per transport request, right? So you are requesting 3 transport. That is one request. We take that, and you can see that we have an instantiation of the workflow, and then they will get changed color once they start running in the system. So behind the scene, that's what happens. Let's take a look at from a system standpoint. So for instance, the ZO3, we can actually look at from an application performance side, what's in the system. So this is what we do from a monitoring standpoint. Before we can orchestrate, we obviously have to monitor, we have to connect before we can manage it and then automate those processes. So here we go with, so this is a system overview. This was started this morning just to provide the demo. So in any of our solution, you get the full-fledged monitoring and management of the SAP system as well, right? So this is the overview of this ZO3 system. And you can see the activity, response time, or anything else, availability of app servers, etc. So this is our standard APM solution. That's part of the transport automation stack that you get when you choose our automation solution. Okay, so now I want to go back here again and see it's processing. So what I do get is the first email from that. So normally I get an email saying, a request, change request is being processed, right? So here's the email, source, target, here's a transport. So then you tell that you are going to get notified again once it's been imported or what the status is, right? So you don't need to be sitting there waiting. Obviously, you get inbox, and then we can post those emails to either, a group or a person for the basis team as well, not just the requester, right? So here we go. He already sent the request, release. All of the transport were released, so they went successfully into green status. And then we're going to wait for them to get imported to the target system. So at this point, I'm going to continue first the presentation. I think we have another, how many transport management landscapes? So this is talking about how complex is your environment, right? So some people have 3, 4, 5 different SAP products. Each of them have a landscape that needs to be managed. So let's get a quick poll on that. I'm going to answer for some of the questions that I know customers have a lot of landscape, but typically most common that we see is traditionally SAP customer have ECC and maybe CRM or SCM and something else like BW, etc. All right. So regardless of how many how many landscape you have, we can automate the same process or similar process for each and every one of them, and then they can be monitored on the same dashboard because you can see multiple source, multiple targets, multiple destination, right? So I will continue discussing the next portion. So let's go back to the actual workflow itself and see. So now they should be complete. That means all these transports, individual ones, were enumerated and they ran into the target system, and all of the thing went into our production system as a target. And we will also see the emails that I will show. So this email just came out and we get alerted that group 1 went into and return code 4. Okay, so that's a successful transport automation that went into as a bundle. So you can do obviously individual, you can do all kinds of combination groups, and you can definitely put into multiple targets as well, right? So that's that particular piece. And let's see what else. Okay, so at this point, we've kind of completed the overall end-to-end. As you can see, we request, we execute, we alert or notify, and then we also present it on the dashboard. So you have a complete overview of every transport in your system that went into using this solution, right? So you get these submissions, days, you get by request, by user, by system, by target, and then you get the drill down. So we can send also daily reports as well as maybe weekly if we want to get all the transports list for particular systems, how many and when to where, what was their status. Okay, so that's kind of the overview of the solution. So at this point, I think I want to kind of recap what our solution is. Really, our IT-Conductor solution provides the simple kind of plug and play, almost as a service. Our solution can then automate those end-to-end process that will remove your manual process and increase the productivity of your team. Now you don't need a dedicated person to do transports. And so some FAQ we actually do have a wiki page, and if you reach out to us, you're interested to do a POC or something, we can set up very quickly. We can clone our process and customize for your system. Support transport to other systems that are not part of transport route. Yes, we can. IT-Conductor is an automation solution, so we can even say move file, copy file from here to there and between if they're not part of the same file system, etc. Some customer may have different transport domain, etc. So we talked about transport automation, right? We went end-to-end, request, execute, alert, and then display in the dashboard or report, right? We also display how it worked as part of our process orchestration. We have a simple form, and that assumes that you have a request process that goes into the start of the workflow. And the main transport automation advantage is obviously time consuming, remove the process, the waiting, and also notify you of success or failure, and also provide the audit log capability. And it's integrated into your system without additional install of anything like a solution manager jam or some third party thing, as we work agentlessly. And for SAP customers, most of them will require just a user in the SAP system that we provide a role for that would have the appropriate security for SDMS in order to do the import. So that's an easy one to do. And also we work alongside with your team because we have our online 24/7 support. And so we do it agentlessly and remotely for you. And when you have problems, we are here. We can see the same process that you do. Okay, and our transport automation really support every type of request that you have for transport of copies, customizing workbench as you saw in the demo. All right, and some projects also require mass transport. Maybe you're testing QA and then you do a project release. Let's say a bundle, 20, 30, 40, 50 transports, etc. It's the same process that we do today. We just add the number of transports into the request, and then you will take care of that, especially when you have dependencies within transports. It gets resolved internally through the SAP interface. And of course, we get the alerting, notifying. Some customers want to get notified through things like Slack or Teams, not just through email. We also support those, right? And the basis team can also get notified, and the obviously requester as well. So you can imagine you can have a requester putting in their own transport. We have many requesters, and that automatically notify them. Okay, and then you have the history of the audit logs of all the transports that's performed. Okay, so that's kind of a summary, and then also from a re-import standpoint, obviously you can just request the same thing again. Typically, you go to QA, maybe something is not right, you get an error, get fixed, you can re-import those. Okay, so that's all supported through that. So here's kind of an opportunity to automate and simplify the administration of SAP environment. We provide end-to-end solution integrated to monitoring, as you can see from dashboards and KPIs, notifications, and then the automation through custom workflows that support you for your IT process automation needs. And in order to that, we actually provide end-to-end monitoring and orchestration, right? So that's the overall solution. I know I've got 2 minutes left on the time. I wanted to open up to any Q&A. If folks have Q&A, we can answer those. If you raise your hands, if any questions, we can try to address that and unmute you as well. Any questions? If not, we encourage you to reach out to us if you have an automation request, not just transport. We have covered in the past a couple of months topics like migration automation. We can migrate systems to cloud through automation, from provisioning to deployment to data movement, and of course the hypercare. We also do things like system refresh automation. So some of those are available today on our website. You can look at our solution page. We have past events that are also listing the recorded videos, and those videos have full detail about, including this event will be posted after we process the recording. But we have other things like the system refresh that we did, and then we also do end-to-end migration. So all this require us to monitor, manage, and then orchestrate and provide you with an end-to-end solution as a service. Okay, so I encourage you to visit our website and reach out to us if you have any questions. Otherwise, I would like to thank everybody for attending the webinar today, and good luck for 2023 on your automation challenges. So again, if you don't see something that we today do, we'd love to talk to you. We can customize any orchestration that you need to help automate your IT processes. Thank you.